Hey guys, welcome to the London Lift podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Mr. Hunter McIntyre. If you don't already follow Hunter, Hunter is probably one of the most charismatic guys out there in the functional fitness scene. He's competed at the CrossFit Games. He holds the world record in 2 versions of High Rocks and has won all sorts of obstacle course races in his time. He is exceptionally entertaining, has a lot of funny stories in this episode, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. He's had a really interesting background involving drug addiction and getting into loads of trouble in his youth. And I think for both of us, it was a very entertaining episode. We learned a lot, and I think you guys will take a lot from it as well. So stay tuned. But before we get into it, as always, a big thank you to our show sponsor, Wit Fitness. Please check out the store in One New Change St. Paul's or the website at wit-fitness.com and use our discount code LL15 to get 15% off your purchase. All right, let's get into it. Hunter, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For those out there who might not know who you are, could you give us a quick background as to who you are and what you do right now?
I mean, there's a lot of things I could say, but right now I'd say my greatest accolade is I'm a lunging professional because of our most recent assessment. That was really good.
Charmer.
Yeah, my background is primarily in endurance sports and mixed modality sports. You know, I've had the opportunity to do things like compete at the CrossFit Games based off an invitation I got in 2019, but the majority of my career has been spent doing cardiovascular challenges, whether it be 3-day ultra marathons, 1 mile Spartan race championships, 1 hour long fitness championships like High Rocks, competing in a lot of reality television shows, which are really big here in the United States, like Broken Skull Ranch. I was the undefeated champion on that for 3 years. So I really built my career amongst insanity and opportunity that was laid out in front of me every year. Like I do have a schedule and there's things that I want to accomplish every year, but with the growth and the ebb and flow of the way that our sport works, opportunities pop up and then things will fade away. So you have to be very pivotal in the experience of it all.
For sure. And I think anyone who's followed you knows you've got a very interesting backstory. We won't go through it exhaustively, but what would you say the key parts of your journey were that led you to go down the endurance sport route?
I mean, it was kind of a natural thing. Without me even training endurance, I was probably covering anywhere from 15 to 40 miles a day on bicycle, running, skateboards when we were younger. I'd wake up in the morning to my friend's house that was 2 to 3 miles away. Then I'd bike back to my house. Then I'd bike to another person's house. Then I'd go over here. Then we'd ditch our bikes and we'd run into the woods with our paintball guns and play paintball for a couple hours. Then we'd be done. And then we'd skateboard for 2 hours that night. And to most people, they'd be like, that's crazy. I wouldn't even do one of those things in a day. But that was every single day. And then I kind of left the world of wanting to be outside and compete and have fun and the opportunity of girls and drugs and alcohol popped up at a young age, and that took me in a very, very different direction. Like, it was, most people, if they wanted to be elite athletes, would be going in one direction and one trajectory their entire lifetime to maybe make it to compete at the NCAA championships or maybe even get a pro contract when they left college. I didn't do a workout in my life between the ages of about 14 and 19. I spent all of my time drinking, doing drugs, and chasing girls. And then I legally was bound to go to rehab. I was arrested so many times that I was legally sent away for rehab for a year and 2 years of probation. And by the time I had gotten back, I'd lost any and all opportunities associated with sport. I got kicked out of a bunch of schools. No coaches wanted me anymore. I was in the paper all the time for being arrested. So I kind of had to be my own resolution and give myself opportunities through success rather than, I couldn't be a nice guy. Nobody wanted to see me be nice anymore. Only way I could get people's attention was by winning. And I knew it was something I was truly passionate about. And now I have the opportunity to speak with people like you because of the hard work that I was able to transform myself with.
That's amazing. And I think, like you say, it's not the traditional route for an athlete, but I think that's part of what makes you so interesting and probably why you've got so many fans. I guess, do you think there's something in that period of drinking drugs and chasing girls that helped you, ironically, that you took some lessons away from those experiences? Or do you think it was just a complete jolly?
I mean, I've always said you never know the highest highs unless you've experienced the lowest lows. I mean, it's just the definition of perspective. If you live with a silver spoon in your mouth, you were raised with money and you were raised with opportunity. You had a nanny folding your clothes and someone feeding you at nighttime and pampering you and wiping your ass. And then you made it all the way through Harvard because your dad was a donator to the school and stuff. There's people that live that way. And I don't think they ever will really understand a hard day's work because they had everything given to them. I actually was raised with a family that had financial success and a lot of opportunities, but I shut all those doors just through my own actions. And I think after going through all that experience and getting in so much trouble and dealing with so much shit at a young age, that I never feared a hard day's work or a hard, challenge now, because I've done so many shitty things in my earlier years. It's nothing that I do now really compares. There's nothing worse than the hangover of a bender and getting kicked out, getting arrested, not having anybody pick up your phone calls, your dad leaving you in jail because he no longer wants to see you. The days that I live now are far more simple and a lot more luxurious.
Do you find that what the times that you spent in rehab you reflect on now? Were they transformative at all? Do you have any revelations? Obviously, since it was forced, so sometimes do you feel a bit resistance toward that, or do you feel that actually turned you around and brought you into the athlete that you are now?
Actually, rehab had nothing to do with my current situation. I can only speak from my personal experience, but I think rehab is actually one of the worst things you can do to an addict, because what happens is you typically put yourself in a room with a bunch of other people that are addicted to drugs. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, one light bulb by itself only shines so brightly, but if you put 20 of them next to each other, it's a very electrifying and bright experience. And we're all vibing off of each other, the fact that we want to go back and do drugs. And these are the drugs I like to do. What do you like to do? And and it magnified the experience that I was already living in. And I actually got deeper down the hole of drugs. I was doing more drugs in rehab than I was doing before I got into it. And I at one point I got in an argument with my friends, and he was doing heroin, and I was like, "You're such a fucking loser, man. Quit doing heroin. Like, why do you have to do that shit? It's so gross. You don't understand how good it is." And I was like, "All right, fine. I'll try it. And if it's super good, I'll leave you alone. If it sucks, you're done." He's like, "Okay, cool." So I did the stuff, and it was incredible. It was the greatest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I was like, "Oh shit, I got to leave him alone." Yeah. And I got to leave this stuff alone. And, but there was a moment that I had this kind of breakthrough where I knew that I could no longer do this. And I had to make this grandiose gesture or act to prevent me getting to the drugs and having the opportunity to get to them. So I just told my PO officer, I was like, "Listen, you got to give me the hardest job ever so that I don't have any energy or any opportunity to want to go do these drugs." So he's like, "Okay, let me make a couple calls." And I'm sure you guys maybe heard this or not. And if you've heard this too many times, I apologize for rehashing the story. I got a phone call that I got hired as a logger in the mountains of Montana. I'm from Connecticut, the softest state out of all 50. Montana is probably the hardest state out of all 50. And Connecticut has perfectly trimmed grass and nice roads, and it's Greenwich, Connecticut, and Fairfield, where people wear nice khakis and good shirts. I was dragged up to the top. We were between 6,000 and 7,000 feet my first day's work, maybe a little higher. And I had to start logging in the middle of February on top of a mountain where the logs that we had cut the day before was now underneath about 12 to 18 inches of snow. So I started logging, and I learned to just become a man overnight. I learned to respect the fact that I had a schedule, I had superiors, and I had shit to get done. And if I got high, I was fucked. And it just changed me. I learned the perspective of hard work. I learned the value of camaraderie, and also not necessarily a pecking order, but there are people you need to listen to. As a youth, I didn't care about anybody. I was like, "You have rules?" And I was like, "Well, you made those rules up. Well, I'm making up my own rules." So that's what kind of got me in trouble. But now that I had this job and this boss and something I actually cared about, it changed me.
Wow. That's pretty inspiring, I think. And how did you transition from logging? Or actually, before we move on, I just want to make a quick disclaimer that Lunge and Lift does not endorse the use of heroin, even if it's the greatest thing that ever happened. Let's just make that very clear.
I don't endorse it either. I hope you understand that I don't endorse it either. But it's one of these kind of things where I was in the room and I did the things, and I'm sure a lot of people were like, "Oh, I wonder what that's like," or maybe you've dabbled with it and you probably maybe this resonates with you. But yeah, that's the story.
I've heard it's quite Moorish. That's the only thing.
What's Moorish?
Yeah, it means once you try it, you want more.
Oh, Moorish, 100%, 100%. Easy. You got to nip that in the butt. Nip that in the butt real quick.
Sorry, back to my question. How did you get from logging into the endurance sport? Like, what was the transition there? You're in Montana, working really hard, taking some great values away about hard work, and what's the gap?
Well, I had to go back to school. My parents had got me into a college, and when I got there, nobody really wanted me there. They kind of knew that I was coming from a rehab, and the wrestling coach wasn't interested in having me. DT, those are his initials, I won't say it out loud, was the athletic director. And even though my grandfather knew him, did him a favor, he was not pumped about me being there. Nobody really cared that I was there and needed help. And it's not like I deserved to have everybody helping me, but they didn't create any resources to make my situation better. And I just kind of had this breakthrough. Nobody wanted me, nobody cared. And I just decided one day after I got to do a scrimmage practice because I wasn't allowed to practice with the regular guys during regular hours. I decided after that practice that I was like, fuck it. I'm going all in on this. And the only way that I'm going to gain people's respect who don't want me here is I'm just going to be better than them. Like, you can't, even if you don't like somebody, you can't argue with them if they're better than you at what you love to do. But this was it. It was a simple equation. It doesn't matter. If you're X and I'm X plus 10, fuck you. I'm worth more. So yeah. And that's it. I just put myself in the position where I was valuable, no matter what they said.
You couldn't be ignored.
Can't. And I shortly thereafterwards dropped out of college. I was just like, why would I want to be involved with these people? Why would I want to study so that I could be an athlete? And I'll admit, I didn't go directly into studying athletics. I didn't know at this time there was no CrossFit really. It was 2010. The CrossFit Games, I think, with Rich Froning happened for the first time maybe in 2009 or maybe 2010 was the first time Rich Froning went. And there's probably they were getting maybe 20,000 views per YouTube video. Like, it was small. Nobody really knew about it, especially not me. So I needed a couple more years for the buzz of all this stuff to come up for me to actually understand that the opportunity for doing, post-collegiate sport was available. So after that, I traveled the world. I got a random modeling contract and I started modeling for a couple of years. Next thing you know, I was living overseas. I was living in New York City. I was living down in Miami. And anybody who paid for my plane ticket and said I had a job, I was like, fuck it, I'll go. I don't have anything else to do. And all I would do is just work out 4 to 6 hours a day and show up and put on a tight pair of pants and a t-shirt and take a picture. And then I'd go back and do it over and over and over again. Eventually that just ran its course. I was like, this sucks. I hate taking pictures. And I moved to California and I found off a website called active.com that there was a Spartan race. And I hit my first one ever in 2011. And literally after that, I knew immediately what my calling was in life and I just went for it.
Nice.
What was it about the Spartan race that really grabbed you?
Give me 2 seconds. I'm not doing striptease. I'm just melting hot in this sweater.
Okay. Snip this one for OnlyFans.
That's right. If you guys want to start doing tips, you can start hitting my inbox now. So I'd spent my entire life running, and I did a lot of my adventures outside and climbing up trees, lifting up rocks, jumping over fences and stuff. It was very natural for me. It was just it was an action of living rather than an action of sport. And now all of a sudden there's a competitive sport and there's a cash prize at the finish line. I was like, oh, I took sixth place out of 10,000 people my first time doing it. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, this is it. And I called my parents. And I was like, your boy's quitting it all and I'm going to become a mud run champ. And my parents were furious, obviously. But it paid off. Paid off.
How are they feeling about it now? Are they more supportive now that you've seen some more success?
Funny enough, until like 2 years ago, my mom still asked me to go back to college. I'm 32 right now. My mom's like, "You sure this is really a thing?" I was like, "She's like, you sure you don't want to go back to college?" I was like, "Fuck, mom! Like, traveling around the world, I'm kicking ass. I got world titles in my back pocket." I was like, "Get out of here!" But they, they're very, very supportive. I'm very extremely lucky, to have like a group of people that actually believe in me and support what I do. My family surrounds the whole annual schedule, and they're very, very, they show up at my races. They text me, they call me, they make sure they call me during the event, after the event, before the event, blah, blah, blah. It's good.
That's amazing.
That's great to hear.
When you are from obviously with that Spartan race, you said you just obviously with your positioning, that was obviously one of the key things that made you identify, do you know what, this might be my jam. What was it that obviously you said about it? It was very just like, it felt like being like a man, just being able to just do shit, like, say climb over shit. And it's like, have you felt that that's kind of carried over into some of the other areas? Like, did that then, when you started to dabble in a bit of CrossFit, when you'd obviously dabbling in Hyrox, have you found that anything has matched that initial, like that love that you thought, fuck, this is my thing? Have you found that, or did you when not so much?
I mean, it's tough. If you guys want to get really emotional with it, when I first started all this stuff, it was all about winning. And then it became a profession, and it became all about money. And now I'm actually having the swing back where it's like, it's actually all about competing and winning again. And it's tough. Like, you have to have these big adult conversations with yourself where it's like, man, you're super badass, but you get paid less than a dude who works at CVS. And CVS is a pharmacy around here. And I hustle so fucking hard, and I get paid much more than a dude that works at CVS just because I put together other deals. But if you won like every single race in our series worldwide, like all of them, you'd make less than 100K a year. And winning all of them would be like going into a gas station every day and winning the scratch tickets every time you went in. It's just like a fucking 1 in a billion trillion chance. So it was I've had these ebbs and flows big time. And I actually just lost my world championship for the first time ever, losing an event that was in my category. I've never lost anything like that. And I was sitting there on the ground. I was like, are you just going to fucking throw your shoes in the trash right now? Or are you going to get back up and you're going to actually do this because you care about it rather than the paycheck that's at the end? And 2 weeks later, I set the world record in doubles. So I made the decision to start training hard again. I wanted to win. So, it's been definitely a very interesting experience. And there's been a couple of them. Like when I first started doing Hyrox, it was incredibly exciting to start doing that. One of my true biggest passions, what I don't compete in, is ultra endurance stuff. Like every once in a while, I like to just get on my bicycle and ride for like 10, 12 hours, go through the mountains, cover terrain that's just like mind-bogglingly challenging. And that's kind of my pleasure point. But as a competition, I do find I'm best suited. I'm happiest doing things like Hyrox right now.
Is that partly because of what it is that you're coming up against? Because obviously, like, where I know you obviously got the invitation to CrossFit, and you had the opportunity to train with like Jacob Hepner, which I definitely want to touch on in a bit. Did you the fact that there was uncertain events, so you wasn't too sure, so you just had to be generally fit, was that a bit of not of a draw towards the sport that hasn't kind of made you pursue maybe that a bit more? Or was it just getting your face known, getting it around, and seeing what that sport's like?
I mean, the reason why I was like more motivated to do it is because it's just like a much more well-rounded experience. I can run with like collegiate level runners. Maybe not going to win, but I can run with them, and I can do great workouts. I could go do a fast 10K. I can deadlift with most dudes, the strongest dudes at any gym that we go to. I can lift with them, and I can move it. And then when it comes to like the CrossFit type, like high intensity shit, I cook most people unless you put like 2-3 plates on the bar. That's where it starts to go south. And then I can go wrestle. I can do whatever. I can do almost anything. And Hyrox is very well balanced out because it's like 50-50 running and, weight and fitness type stuff. The reason why CrossFit wasn't like really a thing that I fell super hard for is because it's really like 60% weightlifting, maybe 70% weightlifting and gymnastics. And then the rest of it's just like, hey, we got to go for a run now after that workout. It's like, it's not, for me, it wasn't very well balanced. And I started to, my body was destroyed. I wrecked my back. I wrecked my shoulders. And I was finding out that, like, if you study, dude, the majority of dudes that have been on the podium have had major surgeries. There's nobody getting surgeries in my sport. It just doesn't happen. It's like the kind of thing, it's like, do you want to play football? You're going to get paid really well, but you might not be able to spell your name by the time you're 40. So I just like kind of made this decision. It's like, Hunter, do you want to be the best at something that's going to cripple you for the best years of your life and maybe for the rest of your life? Or do you want to just focus on something that makes you happy? And that's where I kind of fell in love with the 50-50 of Hyrox.
Yeah, that's nice. I think it's something we talk about a lot that's in the ever-evolving functional fitness competitions. Like, defining what fitness actually is very difficult. So
yeah, it's
like what I wanted to ask you was, in your eyes, what is fitness? So if you were to think of like the fittest person on earth, what would be their attributes? Because I think, between the different sports, everyone comes up with a slightly different definition between CrossFit, OCR, Hyrox, and for you, what you aspire to be as as your fittest version of yourself.
Well, I'm trying to define it right now. I'd like to die as the person known to being the fittest person on earth, but I think about it in 3 dimensions. Your body's ability to move through time and space, biking, running, swimming. Your body's ability to navigate technical ground, whether that's, it's not really gymnastics. It's like, can you tackle an obstacle course race? Can you tackle like risky terrain in the mountains and stuff like that? Stuff that's like very real world. Like a ring muscle up is not real world. It's just, you're never going to fucking do that. Sorry. Hopping over a fence. Everybody I know at one point or another has hopped over a fence. Whether or not they've done it competitively, I don't know. And then the other aspect is, are you able to move mass? Now, are you able to move mass at a high capacity in its weight, or high capacity in the term of its overall volume and, what you're doing with it? Most people in the world, we were originally farmers or carpenters. This hay bale today, you're going to have to move this rock out of the field so you can, plant something. As a carpenter, you're going to have to pick up this wood or a pole and lean it up against something. You're going to have to work like that for 8 to 12 hours today because we have to build this house. And those are all practical and real world evolutions what you do to apply it to fitness is you just somehow make it competitive. I think somebody who can run a very fast 5K to 10K is incredible. I think somebody that can move, their body weight excessively, meaning like squat, press, deadlift for really, really high rep capacity is incredible. I think somebody that can basically, if I told you like get to the end of this circuit and it's basically an obstacle course race, is incredible. I think once you get more refined than any of that, that's where it becomes like really, really high level sport, but it's not necessarily a determinant of fitness. I think CrossFit's a very unique sport of fitness, but it's not the number one determinant of fitness. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it's too exact. It's too defined and too unique. If I asked 100 people, if we got 100 people in the room and I made them spend 1 month to do the CrossFit Games, they had to do it for a weekend, I would say 97% of them couldn't even handle one of the workouts, maybe if not 99%. If I asked all 100 of those people to do an obstacle course race or cover a 10K, all of them would do it. Maybe a dude who's missing an arm or a leg might fail one of the obstacles. If I asked any of them to swim, I'd be like, hey, just cover 400 meters swimming. They could all do it. So I always think of things in this world as, if you had a pool of people, how many people could actually do the thing that you're asking them to do? And then the more refined it gets, the less impressive it is to the masses.
Yeah, no, I agree with that in quite a large way, because it's funny because over the years, it's like I've always said to clients or friends, like, with my style of training is I love strength training. That's kind of my thing. But I love to be able to do anything that's put in front of me. And when you talk about things like the imaginary, say, zombie apocalypse or something like that, I'm going to be harder to kill because I can run out. And when it comes to obstacle course racing, I think that's just a prime example. You're the best runner. You can get away from anything that's chasing you, no matter what. And then when they do get you, you can fight them back because you're strong. And so it's that ability to blend it all. And so, yeah, I agree massively with that.
Yeah. Were you tempted to get into strongman or martial arts, Hunter? Because they seem to fit quite nicely in that definition of fitness.
I love strongman, and I'm actually pretty familiar and friendly with the guy Martin Martins, who won in 2019, and he came up and trained at my house, and I was like, yeah, dude, like I could do all this stuff, just not nearly as good as you. You're so strong. And that's one of those kind of things where it's almost like CrossFit, where it's like strongman is the shit until you want to compete at strongman. Yeah. It's crazy. He was the most impressive. So I have like a couple challenges at my house. I have called the belt system. And one of the challenges I have is I have these blocks that are metal 2x4s. It's 2 inches wide, 4 inches in depth. And they're hollowed out steel pipes. And a really, really strong person can get, I always say, can you guys get 10? And that's like, and most dudes, like freaks that I know, can barely get 5. He gets on the thing, grabs it, and just starts pump, 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 pump at 330 pounds. No questions asked. And I was like, you fat motherfucker, how the hell are you doing this? And like they're very, very, very impressive. But then all of a sudden, mass moves mass. That's the other game. It's like, do you want to play the sport of strongman? It's more, do you want to play the game of dietary involvements? That's the true thing. And as far as you said strongman, what was the other one?
Martial arts.
I would love to, but my parents banished me from it at a young age.
What, because it made you too violent? What was the reason for not letting you do it?
No, so I wrestled for 10 years, all the way through, middle school, elementary school, high school. And that was cool, but it was tussle, but it wasn't like fucking a hardcore striking and stuff. They were more worried that I was going to wreck my face and my life. And I started to get into it when I was in New York City. And my dad told me, he was like, we're helping support you be here in New York City and try to chase your dreams. And if you're going to sit there and just let your face get bashed in, he's like, you're no longer allowed at our table. And so I was like, all right, give up on that.
Fair enough. On the strongman front, I remember Eddie Hall came to one of the gyms I work at, and he is just the biggest person I've ever seen by miles. I think he was weighing about 180 kilos at the time. It's literally just like 2 big men in one body, and I just couldn't get over it. He was like a planet. It's like he had his own gravitational field. Because he like from a distance, he kind of looks like a very big man, but then when you put him next to normal people, and his volume is like 4 times the size of like some of the girls that were in the gym at the time. It's staggering. And when you see the feats of strength they can create, yeah, my mind was totally blown seeing it in real life. So I guess like Martin Lichess is one of your training partners. Who else have you trained with?
I wouldn't say training partner. He's just a dude that I've worked out with a couple times, and he's a badass dude down in Venice. But I've trained with all the best of everybody. I've trained with Olympians and running, swimming, biking. I've all the CrossFit Games athletes you can imagine. If you name them, I've been with them. And I spend a lot of my time now pretty much by myself. After doing that whole tour with you guys, I actually really inspired me to start spending more time at the gym and being with other people, because I think there's something incredible about just having that camaraderie and intensity, pushing each other. But I always kind of train by myself. I probably have about 3 or 4 sessions a week with other people, but you have to understand I'm training about 12 to 15 sessions. No, more like 12 to 18 sessions a week. So, it's like 20% of my volume, 30% of my volume with people. Yeah. Like this morning I woke up and sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead. You finish your story, then I'll ask.
It wasn't much of a story. I was just like, I woke up this morning and I looked at my phone. I was like, who can I contact to go with me on this bike ride? And I was like, fucking nobody. Shit. I also I live in Malibu, and it's pretty far away from most people that are really highly competitive in sport. I only came out here just based on chance, and now I love it so much. It's like probably the best training grounds I've ever been at in my entire life. And so I train a lot by myself. And if I get people to come up, like last night we did a beer mile, I had 4 friends come up. That was solid. But for the most, I'm by myself.
What was the time? What was the time on the beer mile this time?
I think I got 7:08, but I definitely just did it just to win. I just was like, just got to get by. I was like, I don't want to throw up again. I'm so sick and tired of throwing up. And I actually felt really good. I tapered it, and I was like, I threaded the needle. I wanted to go sub 7, but it was okay. That extra 8 seconds is far, far more worth than the experience of throwing up again.
And did you say your best was 6:07? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
6:07.
Yeah. And that's just like this thing where you're just like in it, you're like the whole time, and you're just like the whole time, and then at the end you're like, I'm a champion. You're like, I don't feel like a champion. This sucks.
It's amazing. I think we need to make that a bigger thing, like the virtual beer mile.
If you guys want, right now for my virtual event, we do an annual beer mile, and it goes off on Monday, and this is for anybody in the world. If you can record yourself going around the track 4 times, 1 beer, 1 lap, 4 times through, and you're the fastest male or female, and you can videotape it, you have to show evidence and tag us on Instagram, you'll win $1,000, both male and female. So, I mean, the beer's only going to cost you $10, $12, and then just start running, bro.
What are the rules in terms of like beer size, or like if you vomit during, or
no vomit? So listen, I don't really have any rules as long as you show me that it's a beer. We actually are sponsored by a non-alcoholic beer company out here called Athletic Brewing, and I freaking love them. They sponsor this every year, so I don't care if it's non-alcoholic, alcoholic, whatever. It's got to be carbonated. Like a seltzer mile is actually way harder than a beer mile, by the way. Don't do that. Show me that it's a beer. Drink the beer. Run a lap. Repeat 4 times. If you throw up or you just somehow go off course on the track, you're DQ'd.
okay.
It's very simple rules. Very simple rules. Very exciting event.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I guess, the other question I had, I've just remembered it now, was from all those training partners or people you've trained with, who impressed you most, and what are some of the best lessons you've taken from those experiences? Because I think it's something that a lot of our listeners would love to have, is the experience of training with their favorite athletes from a broad range of sports. And I think, we'd love to share in your learnings from those experiences.
Yeah. Fittest person I probably ever worked out with is a girl named Rory Bozio. She used to hold the UTMB record, which is probably the most competitive 100-miler in the world, for years. It was like almost the guy's time, and Courtney Dauwalter just beat the record. So Courtney Dauwalter is like the new, queen of town, because she's the most talented ultra runner. But dude, that girl made me feel like I was standing still. We did a television show together where we travel around doing the hardest endurance events. And she basically would train endurance, but not these sports we would go do. And she won almost all of them. She was just dominating people, dominating me all the time. After she'd be done, we'd go have a snack, and she'd be like, I'm going to go ride my bike for a little bit afterwards. And I'm dying inside. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And she was just the most talented person ever. Probably could have been an Olympian in several sports. Jacob Hepner, as far as CrossFitters, probably impressed me the most with his just volume and output. It just never seemed like he was going downhill. He never was dominating me in a way that I was I'm not even standing next to this guy, but he just didn't die. He was like a Terminator, where it's his job was just to survive long enough that you died before him. And he was incredibly impressive. Martins was insanely impressive. Trying to think anybody else would be really interesting, but those are the people that anytime I close my eyes, I'm like, God damn, if they show up, I'm in trouble.
Have you taken anything away from those experiences after you trained with somebody? Do you think, I'm going to do things differently now because of what I've learned from them?
Yeah, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, I trained with her, and she was another one of those people where I was like, holy crap. She and I were going toe to toe all the time. She beat me in almost everything, if not everything. And I learned basically, especially from her, there's just so many different training styles out there. And I think we all get into these certain kind of ruts and styles. And if I turn I don't know if I've got the capacity to do this, but if you can look there, those are all books, and that's maybe like not even 50% of my collection. There's books over there. There's books over on the other side of my bed. And I'm reading about exercise science and athletes constantly, like all the time. And I'm trying to learn new modalities of strength and conditioning. And I've learned what really works for me, but then all of a sudden you go work with athletes and you just learn just one little thing from them and it increases you by 1%. And then if you can do that enough time, let's just say within 2 years, you increase by 10%. Well, 10% off of anything in the right direction is massive. So I've just learned to live with an open mind. I've learned to accept losses so that I can have wins later, like that kind of stuff. That's just incredibly valuable. And also, like, working out is working out. Like, you could be the biggest loser in the gym as long as you're the winner on game day. So that's what fucking really matters. Like, during that workout tour, I got the shit kicked out of me all the time. Like, this 19-year-old beat me in a workout right the day after I saw you guys. It was a workout I clearly should have won. And I was like, part of me wanted to be emotional about it. And then I was like, fuck it. It's whatever, dude. It's a workout. It's nothing more. To him, that 19-year-old's probably like, it was like hitting a crack pipe. He's like, I destroyed him. And, that was good for him. I'm proud of the guy. But then 2 days later, I set the world record. And I was like, that's what really mattered. Okay, Hunter? Mm-hmm. You need to fucking stay in your lane and focus on the important things. So accepting losses is a big part of it.
That's nice. Yeah. Have you ever? You mentioned earlier that how much you obviously enjoy endurance sport. Have you ever dabbled into the world of triathlon, Ironman, and something like that? Because that's obviously now going into some ultra endurance there. Have you ever that been an interest of you?
I love it. I would love to get into Ironman and stuff. I've done a bunch of triathlons. I've done longer than triathlons and Ironmans. I've just somehow never, I had never done a marathon up until this year. And I've been running professionally for 10 years. And I've never done an Ironman before. So it's one of those kind of things. The schedule just gets so full. Yeah. And you also have to realize, you see all these things out there and you're like, God, I want to do it. But it's distracting. So distracting. And I don't like to show up to things that I'm just going to get annihilated at. I just want to feel like I'm in my flow.
So if you was to say turn up to an Ironman, would your purpose there be to essentially to win it? Would you just go there to do it and try and do well? Because obviously you have this competitive mindset, which is great, and I think you should turn up to most events with the intention to win and to show up. You most likely won't, but if you're going there, but obviously with the training that it takes, say for Ironman, where it's such obviously with the cross of 3 disciplines and how much time that can take and how much it may take away from your other endeavors, that have you felt that might be a bit of a thing that actually, do you know what, not really sure I really want to dabble in that fully yet because of how much time that will take?
Well, I know I'm not going to go win an Ironman. I mean, Ironman is such an established sport, just kind of like the CrossFit Games. I know that there's people there who train it year in, year out for a decade plus. I would know if I showed up an Ironman, I want to be really competitive. I want to do really well, but then all of a sudden I'd want to have maybe the fastest marathon time that day. That would make me feel confident. I'm like, okay, I survived it, did well, but also I let people fucking know that I cooked them on the runs. Like going to the CrossFit Games, I knew I wasn't going to win the CrossFit Games, but if they didn't have that cut down system, the next day was a ruck run. It was my plan to dominate people there. And then there was another one, and there was another endurance event. Just tackling my strong suits, that's really what makes me happy and also makes me a better athlete as a whole. But the kind of thing of just showing up to an Ironman and pretending like tying your shoes on and getting your bike there and swimming is going to work out for you, it's just not. I have this piece of shit road bike that I bought for $300, and I train with dudes on $15,000 bikes all day long. And most of the time I can hang with them, but in an Ironman, if you don't have the proper equipment, you're in trouble. Yeah. The other day I was biking with Fergus Crawley, and he's got this Cervelo bike that's probably about $15,000, and it sounds like it's turbocharged, and he's tucked in this position, and he's got the perfect aero helmet and stuff, and we're pedaling, and I'm a beast, and he's just going away from me. I was just like, what the fuck? Yeah. What am I going to do? So the more competitive you get, and also in those sports that are equipment biased, if you're not showing up with the right shoes and the right equipment, you're not even playing the same game.
Nice.
Yeah. So Hunter, with all these other sports and I guess potential opportunities or distractions, how focused is your training at the moment? Is it solely on regaining your High Rocks title, or because that's quite a specific test in that you know what it is. It's 8K, 8 stations, about an hour duration, or are you training to also perform well in Spartan races or anything else that might come up?
So I hit this point where not too long ago, I kind of found out that the more extreme I get into any one end of the spectrum, the worse I get at everything else. I was just training to set the world record for a 200-pound marathon, and it kind of made me in shit shape for a lot of other things. Like I was just too narrow in my scope. Where if I sit in the middle near high rocks, I crush a lot of stuff. I can run a fast 10K, a pretty fast marathon. I can deadlift 550 pounds. I can shoulder press 205. Like I can do shit. But as soon as I started to go like towards CrossFit really hard, the other side, all of a sudden now I'm just so shit at everything over here for the running aspects. And, I'll admit, like I get so distracted because I want to do so much. Like the internet sucks, dude. This phone that I have where you just see people doing crazy shit. I see a bodybuilder all shredded and I was like, that should be me. And then all of a sudden I like see somebody dominating a running race. I was like, I want to be fast too. And you get really distracted. I actually just had a conversation with my coach that I used to work with when I was training for CrossFit. I was like, I need your help again. So he's going to start programming for me again so that I just take away the distractions of what my ADHD might give me. And I'll probably zero in more on just being better for high rocks and allow the exterior events that are similar enough that I'm within arm's reach that I don't have to like really stretch myself to get to. I'll go crush too. Like in 2 weeks, I have the Spartan Games, which is our version of the CrossFit Games created by Spartan Race. And that thing's crazy. Like it's 3 to 4 workouts a day. Last year, we had a 5-hour bike ride, a 6-hour run, 3 CrossFit events, a wrestling match, a tug of war match, a strongman event, a swimming event, 2 Spartan races, like a sledgehammer event, which was like hitting a thing. Like it was just crazy. And I was like, God, like I took second place last year. I led the entire weekend. And then all of a sudden I had a couple bad things and I took second place. I was like, fuck. Uh-huh. So now I'm pretty primed. Like that's my focus right now. So I don't know. Like it's a long-winded answer of me just saying that it's hard to stay on track with my mindset. But once I do get in that state of mind, I don't think there's anybody better than me in the world when I set my mind to something.
Mate, I understand that. It's like over the lockdown period where I saw more and more people in the UK were obviously buying bikes, running. So I dabbled in some, as I said, normally more of a strength athlete. I got into the triathlon world and was loving it, absolutely loving the endurance stuff. And I was loving being shit at something and getting better at it and really trying to nail it. But then I realized how shit everything else got. My physique just started, as you say, everything else just falls shit because my sole focus was, say, triathlon and endurance. And it was just like, as I mentioned earlier, what I loved about CrossFit is it opened my eyes to all sport because I come from more of a bodybuilding powerlifting background. So then when I got into CrossFit, it said, you know what, there's more to it than just lifting weights. You can do all this other shit. And as soon as I then got into the endurance stuff, I forgot all that. But then obviously, as you said, you look at your phone, I start seeing people get back into the gyms and it inspired me to get back in. And I was like, oh, fuck this endurance stuff. Got COVID and it done it for me basically and got straight back into lifting and absolutely loving it again now. So I do want to get into some endurance though.
All of us have this perfect avatar that, if you're really in focus on your training, you will hit it. And if you know yourself uniquely, I know that if I spend about 10 to 14 hours a week doing endurance and about 6 hours of about gym, I know that's a lot for most people to listen to, but I can be around 7 to 8% body fat, 200 pounds and fucking hustle, just dominate. And then I know if I change that formula a little bit, now all of a sudden my body composition changes. I got a little bit more body fat. My legs are skinnier. Maybe I'm faster for running. Like it's just weird. I know when I close my eyes, there's this exact physique that I know of myself that's like my superhero physique. And there's a very specific formula to get there, but it's hard. Like all of us, I'm sure, unless you're just like a single cell organism with no brains up top, it's hard to not want to allow your mind to adventure to other places.
So yeah, one of your nicknames is the bulk pony, and you are unusually big for an endurance athlete. what are the pros and cons? I guess the size must help for some of the Spartan events, but then the extra weight on the running holds you back. Like, do you not
zero
consider
benefits to being this big?
It's so true.
There are zero benefits. There's zero benefits, and it moving through time and space, like I originally told you. If you guys know about sports physiology, there's your VO2 max, which is the opportunity to process oxygen versus the amount of mass that it's applied to. So you have more weight, and it's harder for your body to pump oxygen into that mass. As soon as you start taking that mass down, now your oxygen efficiency levels start to go up. I, in the 190s, am like a 69 to a 71. I, in the 200s, am like a 64 to like a 62. I, down in the 170s, am now in like the 75, 76. Jeez. I, down in the 160s, based on the graph, now I'm up into the 80s. And your job as an endurance athlete is to process oxygen. Oxygen allows you to go and move. It's the number one fuel system for our body. So the thing that I'm stuck with, though, is I hit puberty at the age of 19, and I bumped up to 6'2", 215. And there's not much I can do to get away from my bone structure and my height. So when I've starved myself down to the 170s, and I've pushed myself up into the 222s. And it's cool looking big. Fuck yeah, it does. It's awesome. Walking in the room, everyone's like, damn, who's that big heat man dude? And then there's times when I'm super skinny and people are like, wait a second, you play sports? Because you look like a pussy. And I've had that moment too. And I was like, fuck you, I'm a world champ. I'll poke your eyes out. Dude, because I'm too weak to do anything else. My perfect formula is around 92, maybe 196. Once I get down to like the 188s or less, there's just the horsepower graph starts to go down.
Yeah, I definitely found that because as being a heavier guy, I sit around, say, the 100 kilo, say 220 mark. And so when I was on the bike in particular, I was able to put some good power down and stuff like that. But then over that long duration, and same with swimming and running, it's just like, you definitely start feeling those miles clocking up on the body. And it's like, no matter what, you are still a bigger machine moving through space and time for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it's a good way of looking at it. It's like a hippo. Hippo is a badass. He runs the show. He's living in that pool and everyone's like, damn, he's the boss. But then the hippo's kind of stuck in that pool. He can't really go anywhere else. Whereas the gazelle can roam the whole safari. He can come play at the pool for a bit, but then he can go anywhere else he wants to. So you're just kind of like, do you want to be the champ of your little puddle, or do you want to be the guy or girl who can just do it all, go anywhere they want to? It's a tough decision I always conflicted with. I'm like, gosh, I love that. It's tough.
Where on the hippo to gazelle scale do I want to be today?
Exactly. It's tough every day.
So, Hunter, one thing the listeners need to know is that one of the conditions for you coming on the podcast was that I sign up for the virtual competition you're running. Can you tell us what that's all about, please? I'm a bit worried.
Well, I'm sorry that I bullied you into it, but I tell everybody. People DM me. They're like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I was like, "Only way I'm going to answer that question is if you sign up for OCR Stars." It's like, that's the cost of admission. I run it. So last year during COVID, we've been talking about it a bunch. Everything was suppressed. Our events are obviously extremely participant based, so all the revenue comes from 1,000 people at a High Rocks all the way up to 20,000 people at a Spartan race participating, so that the venue can be rented, the staff can be paid, the pros can get money, the sponsors will come back in. There's just a ton of stuff involved, but it needs volume. So all that obviously dumped off, and I'm watching all these people around the world have got nothing to do, especially me, and I'm like, what the fuck? If I'm losing my mind, everybody must be losing their mind. So I was like, I'm going to start an event much like the CrossFit Open, my own virtual version of like an endurance bias CrossFit Open for our sport called OCR Stars. And my whole idea behind it was to make basically a charity / awareness project to bring money back into our sport. Because like one guy that I know, he's one of the most talented people in the world at our sport. He just won the short course world championships. And he's around 20 years old, and he was like considering maybe like this wasn't going to work out for him. because now all of a sudden everything was gone. And I was like, dude, if a 20-year-old's thinking about hanging up his his shoelaces because of this, I was like, that's not good. Like, I can't stand by and watch the sport that created me and gave me all the opportunities in my life collapse. So I started this event and I bring in the best sponsors. I give away the best cash prizes. Last year we gave away $42,000. We raised tens upon tens of thousands of dollars beyond that to hire staff and give out, create awesome media. And this year we're giving away $20,000 cash, and also one lucky sign up, which could be you, is going to win a Jeep. So like, I just wanted to change our space. I wanted to make it like a freaking really impactful, badass thing. And I looked at all the stuff that I wish that I had when I was coming up in the sport. And I was like, how can I give back? How can I change someone's life? And I was like, I've always wanted to win a car. That would be so cool if I had my favorite car to go to my races with. And I was like, I never won that, but someone's going to, because I'm going to make it happen. And I was like, cash prizes in our sport suck. Like the Rogue Invitational is giving away like $1.6 million to 40 athletes spread out. I was like, that's a professional sport. That's people who are actually making enough money to focus on the profession of the sport. Whereas I just set the world record for doubles. We didn't get paid anything. At a higher level of the competition, we'll get paid, but we got nothing other than a t-shirt. And I was like, fuck that. World-class performances deserve to have world-class, compensation. So I'm just trying to change the experience for the pros and make the experience of everybody else who's kind of the average day heavy hitter, give them a better experience. Let them feel like they're rewarded. And it's been awesome. It's been hard work. I feel like shit half the time, but I'm happy.
That's awesome. And what have I got in store? Like, how many events are there? What sort of equipment do I need? All I've seen at the moment is running, maybe one dumbbell and a pull-up bar. I think that's the requirement.
Once October 1st hits, we start to really release all the information. And since we're doing this podcast now, it's perfect timing. So event 1 is a 3-mile run. And understand that there's an individual field and there's a team field. And all the workouts are the same across the board, but the teams do it in relay form. So let's say you two were a team with another one of your friends. The 3-mile run would be done by one of you starting, running a mile, and then passing off your watch to the next person, run the next mile, pass off the watch to the next person, run the next mile. So as long as your watch shows that you've covered 3 miles with Strava and you can send the embedded link in, then, we count it. I, as an individual, run the same exact course that you guys would, just as an individual. So obviously running bias. The next event is all strength. It's called the Grip Gauntlet. Letting you guys know that there's a deadlift in there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's going to be heavy. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then obviously we're going to tax all forms of grips. So the reason why I put the deadlift in there is because every single year, the first championship that we go to, all of the pros show up and there's a tire flip and half of the field can't flip the tire and their placements go to shit. So I was like, I'm going to test the deadlift to remind people that they suck at lifting things up off the ground. So I'm going to make sure athletes know that that's a movement pattern that's in our races that needs to be trained at home. So we have the 1 rep max deadlift. The next one is a pull. So you need to have a pull-up bar because it's going to be, strict pull-ups. We're going to have everything tested. And then there's another aspect, which is going to be max overhead hang on the pull-up bar. So it's 3 challenges. The deadlift, 0 to 7 minutes for the deadlift, rest 3 minutes. Minutes 10 to 15 is max pull-ups with a 35-pound dumbbell between your leg, or a 20-pound dumbbell for women. And you pull. If you want to come down, let your arms lock out, then drop the dumbbell, rest for a second, go. So that's pull capacity, which is a big part of our sport. Rest 3 minutes, and then last but not least is hold on to the bar and hang as long as you can. Shit. If you were doing a relay team, it would be team athlete A, who is ever best at deadlifts, then your pull athlete, and then your hang athlete. So switch it up. And then the last workout, I can't promise that this is going to happen, but one of the biggest CrossFit companies in the world, most successful ones, probably top 2, is going to partner with us, and they're going to create the last workouts so that their community can get involved with our community and we can pollinate.
Amazing, mate.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, think about it. We talked about the whole like CrossFit thing and the fittest thing. Like, I really wanted to see like an athlete that can run 3 miles really fast. That's an engine. An athlete that's very strong should have no problem picking up a heavy weight, being able to pull themselves chin to bar a bunch of times. The 35-pound dumbbell is not that crazy. I think a really elite level athlete should be able to get about 10 per minute. And a low level athlete, if you can't even pull it up once, that's a pretty glaring hole in your training, because if you can't do that, then there's a lot of the events that we do you will not be able to participate in. And I don't know one athlete that wants to show up an event and miss obstacles. You want to at least try them. And then the hang thing is, like, obviously in our sport, dude, sometimes you're holding on to rigs for like almost 60 seconds. And, if you can't just hang from a bar and survive, no chance you're going to make it to the end. So I study our sport heavily, and then I apply it in this contest.
No, I love it. I think they're very good, simple tests. There's no real hiding places, and it's just, very clearly laid out. And what's the deadline for? What's the deadline for submitting videos? How long's the duration of the competition?
Every week, November 1st to November 7th, I think, then November 8th until like November 6th, 14th, and then it's like the 15th through like the 20th something. So it's every week. You have until Monday, until Saturday noon PST to submit your workout.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a month to train for it. That's
you got a month. There's nothing. Listen. If you somehow don't make it through the 3 mile run, I'm gonna call you.
I'll do one now. I'll do one now just to get one in the bank. And
yeah. And everything is recorded on Strava. Download the app Strava. It's absolutely free, and it's just a cheap, not cheap. It's free, and it's the best GPS analytics company in the world as far as endurance sports.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Are you signing up?
Honestly, by the way it sounds, it has tempted me. But I'm kind of saying, I want to say to Ash, maybe we do the team one. Yeah, we'll find someone else and do the team version.
I think it's super fun. Like the team thing, I've had some of the best experiences in my entire career doing team sport, team events, and it's so much fun. So you're a hoss, obviously, if you do the deadlifts. Ash, I'm sure that you're going to probably crush the hanging from the bar stuff. And I pray for you guys in the run.
Let's find a runner to recruit.
Yeah.
Someone who's got a hot mile, and then I think we've got a pretty strong team, actually.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Mate, I've really appreciate today. It's been so entertaining chatting to you, mate. Thank you very much for your time and coming onto the podcast.
Oh man, it was an absolute pleasure. You guys really took care of me while I was overseas. So if I can ever return the favor and support what you guys are doing, I would be really pumped to. And also, if you're ever in California, look me up. I'd love to show you guys a good time. We get wild in the mountains.
That sounds fun.
As soon as we can. Hunter, where can people find out more about you, more about the OCR Stars Virtual Comp? What are your links?
My Instagram is Hunt the Sheriff, and most of the stuff that we're doing is either provided off of Hunt the Sheriff on Instagram, my training company, supplement company, and racing company. You can find all on House Training or at OCRstars.com. So we are really doing our best to change and improve the experience of endurance athletes and strength athletes around the world. So if you're a fan of either, look us up. We'd love to make your day better.
Amazing, awesome. Mate. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Rock and roll. If you ever need anything from me, hit me up.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
Now, that was an entertaining podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I don't think I stopped smiling throughout the whole thing. Well, until he got onto the bit about the drugs and stuff, I was more fascinated. I found it incredibly interesting the way he's had such a diverse, what a journey from where that is to now, obviously, where he is now. And yeah, I love the nickname of the Bulk Pony. I thought that was amazing. But I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as you did. And thank you again, Hunter, for coming on. We really appreciate your time. And guys, if you have got the opportunity to sign up for the OCR Stars, if you want to do it as an individual or a team, Ash, I think we do need to find an extra runner. Maybe get that little team one going. I'd be keen for that. But if you do sign up for it, do tag us and tag obviously the OCR Stars and share it on Instagram and let everyone know what you're getting involved in. But as always, thank you for your time. If you did enjoy this episode, please do share it with others. If you do enjoy generally lunge and lift, which we hope you do leave us a review on iTunes. Check out our website, lungeandlift.com, for all things lunge and lift, including all the shit we recommend. And as always, share. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Cheers, guys.